Ramesar, and I'm pleased to say my guest today is Neha Dawar, who is, I believe, our first Kathak dancer fashion stylist on the program ever. Neha, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
It's nice to have a young person on, and it's nice every now and then to talk about culture and I guess beauty and things that we normally don't take very seriously, but which in fact are kind of important to the human condition, aren't they?
Yeah.
You're young. How did you manage to end up in those two particular areas?
Well, first of all, I started off dancing for like 8 years. When I first really got into Kathak dancing, I actually used to play tabla. Just not like just started it and from institute, and then I went downstairs and I saw this classroom and I was keep hearing these bells and this rhythmatic cycle, and I saw these lovely footwork and sync timing, and I just fell in love with Kathak. So that's how I end up into that field of that particular dance, because I knew I needed training from somewhere. And then as time went by, I started my marketing degree, and then I always have this passion for fashion and jewelry and beauty and all those things. So I was like, I saw this UCT program in the papers, and I said, I need to apply for this. So I just got my pencil, got a few papers, and just started sketching and coloring, and I sent in my application, and then just waited for a year while I did my degree. And then when I got the call, I just left marketing and went straight into the fashion.
Well, it's been said many times that you should always do what you love in life, and I guess clearly this is something that you love doing.
Yeah.
In terms of the dance, I imagine then you're sort of steeped in Indian culture as a child even, were you?
Yeah.
So this is something that you perhaps were meant to get into.
Probably, yeah.
And in terms of how the two things work together, I mean, dance is obviously about movement and beauty, and I guess to some extent fashion is also about movement and beauty as well.
I see a lot of linkage between that is because when I perform or even like just sit down and watch these dances, I got this liking for designing my own outfits for dance. So from the fabric to the design and the concept, I saw that linkage as well. And then when you go into like the art craft of Kathak, it's a creation as well as fashion is a creation. And to me, art is one, be it food, fashion, dance, even being a musician, it's all an artistic craft.
Although the two are different in some fundamental ways. I mean, Kathak dancing in particular is fairly regimented in that there are certain rules that must be followed, otherwise it wouldn't be Kathak dancing. Whereas fashion is a much more open sort of field, isn't it? It's more about expression and self-expression.
Self-expression.
Do you think the two complement each other in terms of your life?
It does complement, because in Kathak, yes, there are rules, but at the end of the day, it's all about choreography and the concept behind it. Like in Kathak, you do something called katha, which is like storytelling. So you tell a story, as well as in fashion, you can tell a story with what you wear. So that's where I see the linkage in between.
But they're both sort of challenging areas, because I mean, in terms of making a life and a career, there's a lot of competition in both areas.
Yeah. So. But it's something, I don't see anybody as a competition or anything. I see it as a colleague. Like if somebody else in the same area or anything, I see them as a colleague than a competitor. You can learn from your colleagues. You never take anything as a competition, because that's when you go to a downfall.
In terms of this sort of background you come from, is it more of a sort of a purist Indian culture background, or more of a sort of a modern Trinbagonian, if you will, version of it?
Well, it's a mixture of both, because at the end of the day, my parents grew me up with a lot of rules and regulations. And then from that, I followed from my own self, and I don't drink, I don't go out to parties too much. I've been always to work and putting my mind forward to dedicating to dance and fashion. And I don't see anything right now besides that at this point.
Do you see yourself as setting an example for young people in terms of your seriousness and your approach to life?
Yeah, I can't see that, but it's all how people take on life. People will not maybe see my side of things. They might say, okay, she's just too strict, she's a mommy or daddy girl, but at the same point, that's where my focus is, where compared to other person, their focus might be on something else.
And it's also what brings you joy in life, isn't it? I mean, some people might get joy from fetting, whereas you clearly get joy from working in dance or in designing.
Yeah, so it's like people might get their joy from anything, and I get my joy from doing that. For me, it's like a hobby, it's my lifestyle. And also, as I'm a student of Caribbean School of Fashion Design, it's really serious work. We don't have like anything called a break.
Yeah, I want to talk about that in a little bit because
Yeah.
people may not realize that I've spoken to Anya and Book Mailing, and when I talk to them about the current fashion course offered, it is one of the strictest sounding things I've ever heard
Yeah.
in my life. Give us a sense of that, because I know people who wanted to go in, but when they heard the rules, they just didn't go ahead. It's basically they make it like the industry.
Yes, it is. They said that one thing they try to train us for is that in New York, those interns are running with coffees, with sample pieces, and they want to give us that on point kind of lifestyle, because in the fashion world you can't be late, and at the end of the day we are nobodies, and those are the designers out there, and we have to, if you want to be somebody, we have to learn from the best. And what else we can do is but learn the proper attire. They have a specific rule of dressing. You have to be there at 9 o'clock. If you're not there at 9 o'clock, you could mark late. And from there, well, if you go...
And that affects your grades as well, doesn't it?
It affects your grades, that's what I said. Once you're 3 days late, that minuses your A right there. You go from a B. So if you're absent, you have to present a sick leave or a sick letter. If you go to the dentist, you have to present a note that you were absent for that amount of time, because it just puts your grade down. Because part of being in the work life, you need to know that you need to be present there 9 o'clock in the morning or 8 o'clock in the morning, because that time is money. So that is what they try to instill in us, and some people don't understand that.
Do you look at The Devil Wears Prada as a study guide then?
Yeah, I think everybody does. It's a perfect example.
Right. Well, and I guess that's based on Anna Wintour and her very well-known strict approach to the business. So in terms of where you see your future, I mean, Kathak dancing is beautiful. Whenever there's performances, I will go, certainly with Balkaran sings and things like that.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily the most popular form of dance in Trinidad and Tobago. That seems to have gone more the way of generic sort of chutney dancing that we're used to. Do you think we'll ever get to the point where people will go in droves to see Kathak performances?
Well, at this point, you see a lot of people, a lot of Kathak dancers who are in the industry trying. They put out theater productions where they mix the culture with different art forms. And I think people will get that appreciation. That's why I believe, again, UTT, they started that program of Indian classical music, etc., is because they're trying to instill that value. And I'm seeing a lot of response there as well. I heard a lot of students going and attending there, and they are really happy after doing that little program, as well as the Mahatma Gandhi Institute. They do the tabla, the harmonium, and they also teach dance. And people see going more and more into it. A lot of people come and ask me, where could I learn classical dance? I want to learn Bharatanatyam, I want to learn Kathak, I want to learn this. And I'll recommend them and tell them, okay, go there, and they're happy about where they're going. I mean, chutney dancing or dancing on a freestyle dancing on a hold is an art form that developed from the culture that is here.
Right.
So I call it an art form of Trinidad and Tobago.
Because, you know, there's some people who sort of draw the line and they'll say, well, this is pure culture and that's something else. That what we have here is not pure Indian culture.
Yeah,
do you think that's a fair thing to say?
I think it's all about, Trinidad and Tobago is a multicultural society. So you can't draw a line. That is what people have been instilled in their value and their understanding. They're developing their own style. I mean, in India, they have something called chole bhature, which is like a chana, just like the doubles. And down here is doubles. It's the same thing, but just a variation. And Trinidad and Tobago has become its own culture.
And I guess in very much the same way in India itself, I mean, Bollywood is one thing, and Bollywood dancing is one thing, but it doesn't mean you can't have the two living together perfectly happy.
Exactly.
And I remember reading in your biography that you are looking to try and add a sort of a Trinbagonian flair to things, whether it's fashion or dance.
Dance, yeah.
So you don't have a problem with blurring the lines a little bit and incorporating Kathak technique into
I would
something more
love to
local.
work with any kind of art form. As I said, everything is an art form.
Because even looking at, as your title, Kathak dancer and fashion stylist, but you're also an image consultant and a jewelry designer as well.
Yeah. Well, jewelry is a hobby. I do like people will come to me and be like, I want this done, so then I will go into my procedure and get it made and whatnot. It's just like a hobby for me.
But all that falls within the ambit of fashion as well, doesn't it?
It does.
In terms of your plan to be in the world of fashion, are you looking at being a designer or more in the merchandising side?
I actually want to be a designer. I really like the whole concept of designing clothing, and as I said, I like put together my own outfits as well.
Are you wearing yourself now, or?
No.
Oh, we could have had an example then right in front of us. But because I'm asking you that because I know it's wonderful that the government has put an emphasis on the academic side of fashion, and because of GATE, more people can pursue it and might not be able to afford. I know for young people like you, that's the best thing ever.
Yeah.
But in terms of what happens once we have all these people graduating in fashion, where do they go? It's a very small market here, isn't it?
Well, I've seen a lot of people resolving into like different things. Like recently, the school sent a few designers to Carifesta. They were able to show right after they graduated the collection. The school also sent them to Canada, where they got to show in Canada Fashion Week. And right now, one of our previous graduates class is going to New York Fashion Week under the Lush Kingdom. So they're getting all these opportunities from when at the final year we get to design our collection. So from there we are able to evolve into different things, our own business. We can intern. There are people like Mailing, Claudia Pegas. We got the a lot of people got the opportunity. Heather Jones, all of them to intern, and then some people going to like styling, more further into that, and fashion designing. So it's a big market. It's just that it's small, so it will be saturated really soon.
Which is something to worry about, I guess, for you and people like you are young and graduating and thinking, well, is there room for me here? Because, I mean, ultimately, fashion crosses borders, doesn't it? And you should be able to translate a business here into an international business. Unfortunately, there aren't that many really good examples of it. Even some of our very best designers have had trouble breaking into anything outside the Caribbean.
Well, it's all about concept, thought, artistic, what you put out on the platform, and your business ideas. That's, to me, that's what matters the most.
Now, for a young person like you, how important is somebody like Anya Youngchi?
To me, I mean, I didn't miss an episode of Project Runway.
I don't think anybody did.
Yeah. And, I mean, to see that somebody from Trinidad and Tobago going up there, I mean, it was really good. I mean, now, a lot of people will say that, you know, she does this Caribbean flair, but that is her style, and I admire that.
That's how she is in person as well.
Exactly,
I mean,
she wears her own design. And what I see in her clothing is what reflects her personality. And that is what I think she's a role model for any designer of Trinidad and Tobago to even get the guts to go on Project Runway. And she even admitted on her casting call that she got help. And they weren't even sure that she should be there or she shouldn't be there, but they gave her that chance.
In fact, one of the judges thought she shouldn't have been there at all.
Yeah. And she proved them wrong. And he's one of the top designers and consultants of New York, and she proved that person wrong. And she came out winning, and she just booming from there. So.
And it's sort of interesting because in the past, people would have played down the, if you will, Trinidadianness. And she did quite the opposite.
Yes.
I mean, she made a big deal of the fact that she was from Trinidad. And pretty well mentioned it as many times as she possibly could without sounding odd. And I guess that gives young people sort of something to look up to, doesn't it?
Yes.
That being from Trinidad is not a handicap in any way.
Exactly.
You can make it a selling point.
I think Trinidad and Tobago has evolved as its own country. People are developing, whether it's anything, even if it's not fashion, people are going there, they're traveling international, they're representing. Even this boy, Keyshawn Walcott, he represents Trinidad and Tobago, and now we're seeing him on every billboard and everything you're hearing about Keyshawn Walcott. He came from a nobody to somebody. So everybody will evolve. It's all about the time, the dedication, and what thought you put into that.
So are you optimistic for the future?
Yeah, well, as I said, that I personally just love this career that I'm in, and as I said, that you can never stop learning. I will always be a student. And in whatever you do, there's never the stopping point of learning. So once you learn and you grasp that concept and you know how to put it forward, you will succeed. I'm sure anybody will succeed.
And I know Anya famously has said many times that she's no seamstress. I mean, is that something that you're able to handle easily, or do you?
Well, at the point I'm actually learning to, so trying my best.
A lot of people don't realize that a lot of people who are very good at creating design may not necessarily be good at the actual nitty-gritty part of it.
Exactly, and being a designer, you have to sit and sketch, and even in the fashion program, people think that you're going to be a seamstress, you're going to be a tailor. That's what you get, that negative comment. But there's a difference between a mechanic and the person who designs that car in Mercedes or any other brand of cars. And I mean, in this fashion program, we learned a lot. We learned to sketch. I couldn't draw before I came to this program. And my last evaluation, I got a really good response because I have seen my drawings from the term before till the till now and the year before, and every single time we develop a new term, new skill, sorry, and we learn to do everything from a different concept. It's like draping to pattern drafting. You learn every single thing. So I mean, it's like a multi-learning in fashion. It's not only to sew, and at the end of the day, you need to put in that dedication to learn to sew. So this whole vacation, I have been just trying and learning and learning and learning.
And there's a good reason for that. Even though theoretically, I mean, none of the great designers in the world now, the big names we're familiar with or in the past, probably spend much of their time actually sewing.
Yeah.
But the idea of knowing how it works and the mechanics of it are important, because if you're doing a design, it needs to be realistic.
Yes.
And translatable. So you can draw the most beautiful thing, but if it can't actually be created.
Exactly. So you give it to the best who can translate that design.
Right. And if you're learning to sew, also gives you a sense of what is possible and what's not possible.
That is like, you know, you do like a test runs and then you give it to that person to just make that design happen. Because I mean, as Miss Ayana Young, she said, she's no seamstress, but she has beautiful designs on the runway. I mean, she rocked the avenue with her beautiful designs of recent time.
Actually, that was a wonderful show. Were you there for that as well?
I was there. I saw, it was beautiful.
Well, I guess you almost can't, given that there aren't that many big fashion events in Trinidad, you almost have to go to everything.
Everything. I try my best to go to everything, but when school starts back, you're enclosed. Like, even if you have class from 9 to 4 every day, you're probably not leaving there till 4 to 9. You're not leaving there from 9 in the morning till 9 in the night. And then it had times I saw, like when I was in first year, the final year students were always spending the night. They're not going home for 3 days. Everybody crying. They had time when people cry. People throw tantrums because they're so frustrated. And when they bring into these people like Nigel, the designers such as Nigel Eastman and Mailing, you have to show them your designs and collections, and then they critique it. And if they don't like it, you have to start over from the bottom, and you may only have 3 weeks.
And it's not an easy business, because you're creating something out of nothing, aren't you?
Exactly.
Has your Indian culture influenced your design, would you say?
Yeah.
Like, with somebody looking at something you styled or designed, and say, well, no, Neha definitely did that because it has that sort of a look.
Well, one of my clients were really happy because she just, when I designed something for her and I got it made, and she was really happy, and she said that, you know, it just shows what kind of design aesthetic you have. And even though, as I said earlier on, that I did love to design for what I dance for, and so I blend in what I do.
I imagine movement must be important for you as well.
Yes.
So when you design for movement.
Movement, yes.
Do you think it's a handicap being in Trinidad today, given the fact that, for example, if you're studying fashion at Parsons or in Paris, for example, you're sort of surrounded by a long-established industry that's sort of large in scale and easily discovered. So you have lots of shows you can go to, you can go to lots of ateliers to go and see what they're doing. Here, it's sort of a small industry still, isn't it?
That's why it has, like, we look at everything on YouTube to DVDs. Amazon, we order the DVDs, and if you travel, well, you get to see it, and those movies also help us. And I buy every month I spend like $500-600 just behind magazines, from Vogue to Elle to Asiana. I order even other magazines. So every month I spend at least that amount.
So you're exposing yourself to as much new knowledge and new views.
Because I love to learn.
And it's interesting you mentioned YouTube there, and I have a fair number for whatever reason, of very young friends in your age group. And they are able to learn and sort of expand their minds in the most amazing ways simply by accessing the internet. Which I guess generations before you, the generation of Mei Ling, for example.
I was recently telling my sister that, you know, everybody has this Galaxy phone and iPhones, and our period was the evolving period. You know, everything you can learn on YouTube, people are becoming famous from the videos. Everybody has this fashion blog and whatnot, and even I started my own fashion blog as well.
You can give us the address if you want to.
Well, actually, I can't really remember.
You can't remember the name? I guess if you just Google your name, they'll find it. Which I suppose would be useful.
It's under Tumblr. If you just search me up on Facebook, actually, under my page, Neha Dawar, you will get it. So every week I post up a blog. I try to do 2 days a week. It's about beauty, it's about fashion, it's about how you should carry yourself, everything. a little bits and grits.
No, I guess there's some things, I mean, you can really completely learn maybe from things like YouTube and things like that, like makeup, for example. You can learn technique and sort of do it yourself.
Yeah.
But in terms of fashion, it's a very tactile field, isn't it?
Yes.
So you can only learn so much. You still have to actually experience the fabric and to experience the materials that you're working with.
And thank God, again, to the university, we got this opportunity to learn textiles. So we had a course just dedicated to textiles and understanding the feel of fabric. We made our own portfolio, which we had to go to Jimmy Abu, to fashion, Vanity Fair, and just UFEs, and pick up these swatches and put them together. And we have to put every single detail about the fabric. So we got the knowledge of such fabrics. So we know how the movement flows. If we want this fabric, we want that fabric, we just go to that book and remember, okay, these are the criteria we need for this design. And if we forget, we just have this portfolio on the side. But obviously, you have to keep researching.
Do you find yourself having to defend yourself with your friends sometimes? Because I know you must have friends, female friends, who are in engineering or medicine and things like that, and your age, obviously. But you've chosen to go into something that I'm sure some of your friends will say, why didn't you do something serious?
Yeah,
That's such a girly sort of field to be in, for example. Forgetting that fashion is one of the biggest industries on the planet.
I always say there's a lot of people saturated with doctors. There's always UE, and there's a lot of things like engineering, be it being a doctor, be it English or anything. I'm like, this is something different, and everybody always looked at me as
they criticize you, they're still wearing clothes, aren't they?
Exactly. At the end of the day, what you're wearing, I mean, they have to have people like us to give that outlook, else everybody will be walking naked.
Right.
So, at the end of the day, fashion is a serious thing. I mean, I had a client recently, and he was like, down to the color thought. He was like, it's a science behind everything. And people don't get that. As I said before, I mentioned before, they said tailoring and you want to go into be a seamstress, but it's nothing like that.
And in fact, there was that scene in Devil Wears Prada where she's explaining, no, that thing you're wearing right now, that color was chosen so-and-so time. And came down and mentions the entire historical line of why you're wearing that particular item of clothing that you bought from Kmart or whatever.
And so, speaking about historic, I mean, I recently wrote a blog on history of fashion, which was another course that I was able to learn at CFD, and I even bought a book recently on history of fashion for fashion designers. And people never think of this thought that is put in for, like, from going back to the 1920s till now, how fashion has evolved.
Oh, so you actually do go into the historical side of like all the Balenciaga and Worth and
the
Coco
Worth
Chanel
and everything. And from the World War II, the rationing of the fabric to the new look of Christian Dior. You have to know everything because you have to go back to the history in order to get inspiration, because you can just look at a building and get inspiration.
In terms, we have a few minutes left. In terms of the future for young designers like yourself, or I guess aspiring designers, we'll call you that, because you're still in school right now.
Yes.
I mean, you have somebody like Anya who has, in a certain way, broken a line because she became an international fashion face for Trinidad.
Yes.
Do you think that people of your age group graduating eventually, and you're being so internet savvy, will translate into an actual brand of Trinidad? Internationally, you can finally break that CARICOM sort of barrier?
I 100% think they could. It's all about what is inside of you. This is what matters the most. So I think it's all inside of your craft, is your talent inside, and your motivation behind it. I think that's all that matters.
And in terms of you and your immediate future, how's the dancing going to work out, given you have this horrendous workload at school?
Well, I dedicate my time to, like, right now, like, Skyping with my teachers and stuff. And I try to work around it. Like, if I have school for 9 o'clock, I'll get up at 6 and at least practice for an hour or two. And Skype, once my teacher's available for Skype, and most definitely on a Friday morning and Saturday morning.
Because you're dealing with time zones?
Yes, 9.5-hour difference.
Because you're actually going to the source, you're going to India?
Yeah.
Which we didn't even mention the fact that you are, in fact, actively sort of bridging that gap and staying in touch with the actual people in India to help you learn.
Yeah.
But can they actually teach you dance movement and stuff via Skype?
Yeah, they can. I mean, physically sometimes, you know, but you just aim that camera, and he was like, okay, aim it at
Because I
this
know in the actual
level.
dance school, the person will be grabbing your shoulder and saying, no, I want your
At the point,
line there. Yeah.
you see, these people are trained so much from since they were small. So they will see that if that shoulder is down, they will see that level. They're straightened, you know. So they know, and then I also do my own research as well. Like I read and read and read. And another thing is like posture and knowing where your hands are right, everything.
Well, Neha, we're out of time, but I have to say you sort of filled me with a little bit of a hope for the future in terms of culture and optimism, because you seem like a good example for a lot of young people out there. Thank you so much for being on the program.
Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure having you.
Thank you.
You've been watching One on One. Join us again tomorrow for another edition.